Welcome back to Gaming on the Block, folks. We're up and running again after some work issues, some travel issues. There's been a lot that's happened in Web3 gaming, and dang, are we excited to talk about it and keep some good discussions going and invite you to them. So, Annie, you're with me again, of course. TSG, you're with me again, of course. Annie, how are you doing? You've been very busy.
Yeah, I'm great, guys. It's been a wild couple of weeks here. I had about a week that I was more or less out of the crypto Twitter, Discord channels, Web3 engagement that I usually am involved in due to some travel on my end. But everything's good now. Back trying to get into a rhythm, and it is amazing how much you feel like you miss just being gone for a week. And even it was only about half of that I was not around. But in that time period, Ethereum went through the merge, which is absolutely bonkers. But very excited about the structural changes. As we know, price doesn't always immediately follow change like this, other than in this case, it was kind of a sell the news event. But I'm super excited about what that means for the future of Web3, because I think Ethereum is one of the critical, maybe if not the most critical component that we're building a lot of this infrastructure on. There are, of course, a lot of other chains that are going to be involved in Web3. But really excited to be back with you guys and talking about a lot of other good stuff. TSG, how about you, mate?
Man, I am excited. I'm so excited to be back with you guys. Legitimately, I've been looking forward to this whole week. Yeah, man. For me, I've just been busy trying to do my own thing with the influences and everything like that for Illuvium. Kieran has gone on his crazy. I don't know if I should say that. Kieran's gone on his crazy moment where he wants to do like 50 AMAs in a month. So I'm trying to just get that all set up for him. I don't think we're going to hit 50, but we'll try to get as close to that as possible. So I'm just been busy with that. So we'll be seeing a lot of Kieran and Andrew and even myself just on different AMAs and things like that, trying to just be out there essentially. So that's been going on for the past couple of weeks. But yeah, Will, how have you been the last couple of weeks?
Well, I've been good, but also like Annie, I've kind of been out of it too. I was sick for like a week and a half, and I'm just getting back into it now for the past few days. And like you say, Annie, and we've said this before, like when you miss a week or two in crypto, it's like a freaking year in regular in regular business. It's nuts. And like you say, that we went through the merger, and we've seen a lot of partnerships form as well in the Web3 community. So let's start off talking about that, because for the space to grow, we need partnerships. And I'll start us off here with the WAGMI Games partnership with Arcade to Earn. And I am very excited about this. One, from what I've seen about Arcade. Two, what I see WAGMI when they're making moves, it's been the right moves basically every time. And three, because you guys keep talking about Arcade and how freaking good they are.
Yeah, Annie, like, why don't you kind of talk to us about what you know? Because I know you're actually the closest with Arcade compared to like amongst the three of us. So what do you know about this, and just talk to us about that. Share your thoughts there.
Yeah. I think Arcade has a really, really cool business model. So they're one of the infrastructure players that is building the future of Web3 gaming. And their core approach is really to take a look at making the space more accessible for everyone. So they're bringing in investors and guilds and gamers and builders together into a platform that allows you to really get involved in a lot more games than you would probably have time to if you were investing or playing all on your own. So their basic approach is to bring in a Web3 game onto their platform and then allow you to fund missions using the NFTs, the in-game assets that you can play within the game. And the individuals that are then funding those mission pools, as they're called, they share in the rewards of whatever's coming out from the game with the players and guilds and groups that are actually running the missions themselves. So you've got like mission pool operators that are going to be actually super knowledgeable about the game. They're going to have the best, the best skilled players. It could be everything from actually playing in a tournament to managing Illuvium lands to running ship missions. Really anything, kind of along the lines of a play and earn mechanic is going to work very well with Arcade to Earn. And so that's their basic approach. So they're making it easy for you to not have to follow 50 different Discord servers to keep up with everything, as we just mentioned, is a challenge even if you step away for a week. So it's a great part. And WAGMI Games is, as you mentioned, it was recently announced as one of their partners. So really looking forward to getting more into in-depth work with Arcade and with WAGMI as we bring everything together.
Yeah, and what you didn't mention, you kind of started on as well. Like they've got so many contacts in so many projects, and that they're involved with, and they also do, apart from the mission pools, they also do advisory board kind of thing where they advise projects on what they think the right moves are, and that's why I'm so excited about this partnership with if you want to bring it up again, TSG, and you could even go to the article that they linked if you want to. Basically, what there's a arcade consulting services. They will help WAGMI Games make the right moves. WAGMI has a very solid team that are really good with marketing. They've got Scott Herman, who has a huge following, who's a director of talent acquisition, but they're also acknowledging like, yes, we've done things right now, but we want the very best of the best to help us launch this game in the best possible way and make sure that we make the right gaming moves. And that's why they've brought Arcade on to help them up with that consulting. And I'm excited about it because I think WAGMI has done a lot of right moves, and obviously Arcade, a very, very interesting project. And it's going to be very cool to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Will, Kevin and the Arcade team, Kevin is the lead over at the consulting services on the Arcade side, really bringing that knowledge to bear from Web3 experienced builders, creators, and consultants is proving essential. I've got a number of these projects that they often either are typical Web 2 game development studio, and they've hired a handful of Web 3 natives to help them build, Solidity devs and so on, maybe community managers or moderators. Or you've got these projects that are primarily Web 3 natives, and they've hired or outsourced the Web 2 building components of the gameplay mechanics. And I think both can work. For a long-term perspective, though, I think you're going to need a healthy mix. And whether you've got Web3 natives on the team full-time and whatever that percentage is, the space moves so quickly. You need these good partners. And so my biggest question to projects when I'm doing support and consulting work for them is, who else are you partnered with? And we need to make sure that they've got clear transparency, whether it's the areas of community building and marketing, it's the technical integration, obviously, that's essential, whether you've got it in-house or not, audits, regulatory compliance topics. All of these are points that you don't have to deal with in Web 2. And then that kind of fundamental question, how do you integrate your gameplay with the broader economy? Whether you've got token structures or NFTs, if you don't have something that's sustainable and meaningful, you're in a lot of trouble. And so this is the area where I find most people are struggling to figure out how to make it work. And so, those builders that set up these partnerships are the ones that are going to succeed. I think Santiago and I talked about this in our interview, that the main question is not, are you the best team right now, but are you going to be the best team 6 months from now, and a year from now, and 2 years when your game launches? Those are the founders and the projects that I'm interested in focusing on.
Agreed. And I think like my whole take on that is, and again, like I've been transparent about it, even for me getting that job, right? It's like, all right, cool. No one's expecting you to be an expert at everything. Like that's not what anyone's role is. But what your role is, what your job is to surround yourself with these experts. Like make sure that these people around you are advising you in these. So like when you say these, like, what teams are going to be around in 6 months, the team that's isolated and sticks to themselves, it's not going to be them. It's going to be the people that are reaching out. And I think it was Mr. Beast. I think it might have been you, Will, that kind of mentioned this, or someone mentioned this a while ago. But Mr. Beast used to say that like him and his crew used to like share their opinions on and the winnings and the losing, the losses with each other, and that way they're pretty much learning from each other. So I think it makes sense here. So like again, if you're a project, a protocol, whatever it is, and you're like working with other people, having like good relationships with other people, and that's why I think partnerships are really important, because that's how we're going to grow like faster and more efficiently. So if you make a mistake and we're friends, you're probably going to share that with me so I don't make the same mistake as well, right? So I think that's going to be very, very important moving forward. 100%, I 100% agree with that. And actually with those, the second partnership that kind of happened as well, I think this was massive, with Guild of Guardians. So Guild of Guardians and they're collaborating and teaming up with a whole bunch of esports, like Web 2 esports teams. Yeah. So you've got teams like, and these are big names, like the ones that I can see: NRG, Team Liquid, and T1. They're the ones that I'm most aware of. Like the best Smash player in the world, MKLeo, is part of T1. So this is massive. So I'm not too clued up on how competitive, like, because these are all competitive esports teams. I don't know how competitive Guild of Guardians is actually going to be, but I do know that this is a massive step in the right direction, knowing that these Web 2 teams are looking at Web 3 as a real thing. Like, if all of them are connecting and going around one project, that kind of says something. I don't know exactly what it says, but definitely it's a statement. Like, I'll say that it's definitely a statement that crypto gaming, Web3 gaming is a real thing. Like, there's no way all of them are putting their names and their stamp on something that they all think is fugazi. So, like, Will, what do you think about this move, man? Like, what do you think are going to be the consequences, the results of something like this happening?
Right. Yeah, I think, like you said, like, it shows that these teams, the Web 2 teams, they're actually like looking to Web 3, like you say, as a legit thing. It's coming for the future. But also, I think it shows like the strength of Guild of Guardians as well, that they are able to attract these people. It's not just like, oh, they're looking for Web 3. They could be looking at Illuvium, Sandbox, any of the games, or, just like Ethereum in general, and like start their own thing, start their own NIP. Which is one of the teams, like the NIP token or whatever. But literally, like, Guild of Guardians, they're doing really good job here, and I love seeing that. What I think this will mean, though, I mean, hopefully we see competitive tournaments coming to Web3 for Guild of Guardians. I'm not sure what this will mean, but for Web3, it's just good, and as always. And I hope for more tournaments, and I hope for more good content, because I don't think there's and that's because there's not that many games out that are good, but like more content. We need more content for Web3 to grow. Like, content is the mother of everything. If there's no content, you can't grow anything, especially not gaming related, which is like one of the highest categories of what people watch when it comes to content is gaming, whether it be live or it be on YouTube, whether it be on TikTok or Instagram. Gaming. We need some freaking content, and this will attract more content creators from these teams and from all around.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the Annie, before you kind of share your thoughts as well, and like statistically, the number of esports audiences, like the audience for esports is consistently growing. Obviously, we had a massive spike in the year that COVID hit. But what's been surprising is, as we've opened up, that's continued to grow. So I think that's very, very telling of where we're going in the future. And it's just like, kids these days, as much as they want to watch LeBron, as much as they want to watch, like, I don't even know who's like Messi. Messi's kind of old now, but as long
he's still Messi, bro.
Yeah, he's still Messi. Yeah. No disrespect. He's still Messi. I 100%. But as much as they want to see like real like sports, I think a lot of people are spending a lot more time now on like video games. It's just is what it is. And the same thing, like, we've talked about this with mobile and accessibility. If you want to watch LeBron play, you need to wait till every Saturday or Sunday or whenever they play, right? Whereas if you want to watch your favorite esports player play, they might have a competition every 3 months, whatever. But I can almost guarantee they have a stream every day or every 2 days, right? So it's a lot more accessible. And you feel, again, if you watch LeBron, you're not going to be able to chat to LeBron and be like, yo, man, what's good? Whereas on a Twitch stream, you very much could talk to one of your guys. So I think that like that social media is also playing a big part in why we're leaning in children, or like the younger generations are leaning more towards esports. So I think, again, with these big names, like big esports names coming into Web3, I think that's going to bring in, again, some of that young generation into what we're building. And like you say, Will, once we get a couple of these big games out there, Illuvium, like, I think it's really gonna take off. Annie, what are your thoughts with all of that?
Yeah, so I think the esports point is a really good one. We as an industry have really seen a lot of growth in the past decade of esports. And I'm not talking about Web3 gaming. I'm just talking about gaming in general. And for sure, the sustainability of that model has been proved out. It used to be, I remember even back when I was just in college, not that long ago, that we would have discussions. A couple of buddies that I knew, they actually were professional gamers. And at that time, it was like such a stigma and such like a weird concept. You can make, 40K a year back then, playing video games. That was
big,
like
man.
a wild concept. Yeah.
Big.
You still had like affiliate marketing and sponsorships and all that was really doing a lot of the funding. Well, now I think you've seen so many different titles that have compelling gameplay. This is the point. Just like any sport, if basketball is a boring game, or if football is a boring game, people aren't going to pay to watch it, right? So you need to have gameplay that people are interested in. And most of the time, you need to have people that understand the mechanics of what's going on for the game to be enjoyable. Because if you can't really follow what's going on, doesn't matter the sport, again, esport game, you're not going to really enjoy watching it. And you're for sure not going to be able to enjoy it at a high level. It's engaging for us when we know sort of what's going on as like not professional players, not semi-pros. But we're able to see and follow and realize, oh, what that guy did was just amazing. Because it's way beyond what we're capable of. It's the same thing in esports versus regular sports. And so I think from a like generational standpoint, you're going to see a lot more folks in the millennials, Gen Z, et cetera, that are really focused on using esports as another avenue in addition to traditional gameplay, because there's now a market and demand for it. So let's talk about this a little bit more. What are some of the specific like genres and gameplay content that you all think lends itself well to the future of media and marketing? And let's talk about what that looks like in Web3, because I think Web3 has also the advantage that you can make money if you're really good on the games, even if you're not doing competitive tournaments all the time. So that introduces an entirely different element than we see in Web 2 esports.
Yeah, agreed. Will, do you want to?
Well, when it comes to like, if the question is content in general, like what kind of gaming genre I think will do the best and will be the best for Web3, we need a first-person shooter. We need a really good first-person shooter, and that kind of content to really hit it off. All these other games are great, but I think we need a really good first-person shooter. I think something with Illuvium is very interesting as well, where you're collecting and kind of like Pokemon kind of thing. And since it's on desktop, I think we'll bring a lot of viewers for that if the content is done right. So I think first person shooter is the most important. TSG?
It's hard, man. If we're talking about like a genre specific, like a specific genre for a game, I think MOBAs, MOBAs is what I would say. Just because we've seen the craze with, because if we're talking about like current esports right now, again, what is the highest prize pool for an esport? It's not a first person shooter, it's Dota. So that's kind of where the big, especially like for Web 2 sponsorships and things like that, that's where they're looking at already for esports in gaming, in that genre. So the problem with that is, with that being like the number one spot in terms of prize pools for esports, it's, are we going to create a game that's bigger than Dota? Like that's the question there. How are we going to take that market share? Because not only is it just Dota we're competing with, it's League of Legends as well. So I think it's going to be hard. But I think MOBA, again, it's a pretty general, and there's no real like backing to defend my thoughts there. I just think it's
right.
Yeah, I agree on the genre. Let me push back on this a little bit though, because I think the fact that there's a couple MOBAs and to your point, Will, we've got some FPS that are out that are pretty large. I actually think this is a case where the pool can grow to be so much larger than it is right now that I don't even think it's necessarily a question of stealing market share, because I would submit that if you're a fan of esports and you've watched, even like going way back to StarCraft back in the day, and you were engaged in watching RTS gameplay tournaments 15 years ago, you're open to the concept of doing so today. And likely it's going to be the case that we can create a much larger audience the more the more accessible that these games are and the more interesting they are. And there's a lot of people that I think they like the concept of games, but the lack of ownership is a big hurdle for people to try and get over. So I do think that this is the case where as money increases in the games and you're able to actually give bigger prize pools for tournaments, you're going to see a lot better quality players come to the field for it.
Yeah.
And as a result, you're also going to have more competitive and interesting gameplay that you can bring in viewers to.
Yep. And actually, I agree with you, Annie. Oh, sorry. Well,
I was just going to say, like, yeah, MOBA is is cool and all. And like you say, like there's a bunch of viewers for that. But like the biggest content creators, are they really on MOBA? I feel like there's not that huge MOBA content creator. Like they're not playing MOBA games. They're playing the first person shooter, like the mainstream kind of games like Warzone, Fortnite, whatever it be.
I think you are right. I think you're right. Because with those first person shooters, you can have like these challenges where it's like, yo, quick score 330, 360, whatever, like whatever it is. Like you can have these funny kind of moments. Clearly, my age is catching up. I don't know what's going on anymore.
It's you and Messi.
Yeah, me and Messi, we're around the same. We're
LeBron James, he's such a juvenile. LeBron is such a juvenile. It's so done.
We're getting up there now. You're right. So I think you're right. I think in terms of content, I think it's a lot easier to sell first-person shooter content than it is MOBA.
True.
And something that you're actually saying, Annie, as well about accessibility. This is something that I hope that we don't go down this road because we've seen it happen already with boxing and baseball. I like having it behind a paywall is the death of the industry. Like I think with boxing is getting a kind of revitalization, I think if that's the word, with the YouTube boxing scene, because it's like celebrities of boxing, but otherwise normal boxing is dead. Like not dead, but I mean it was never like there's no Muhammad Ali, like there's no one kind of tracking them and making them pay. So us as Web3 gamers or people in Web3, we need to understand that that's not the route that we want to go on. We want to try and make it as accessible as possible, and just be cautious of that. Because I think that is something that we need to be aware of. Moving on to this next thing, actually, I'm going to bring it up. Another thing with IMX. So Robbie's kind of said that there are 2 AAA game studios that have started building on Immutable, announcing the first within a month. So we actually haven't got any announcement yet, but that's massive. I don't know. Like again, I've got no inkling of what this is. Yeah, so I've got no inkling of what this is, but honestly, that's massive. If it's, again, it could be massive. It depends on what the AAA studio is, but obviously having that AAA stamp obviously means that they're already really, really big. So I think it's going to be interesting, and I think it's super exciting for Immutable. I think Immutable day in, day out are just kind of cementing themselves as the big gaming player in Web3, in the Ethereum kind of space. So massive congrats to Robbie, Immutable, and the entire team. I think this is incredible. I don't know who wants to share their thoughts on this one.
I mean, I like you said, we haven't seen any announcements so far, but Robbie and Immutable just keep coming with really exciting news. What was it the other week? We talked about how they've I can't remember if they acquired or were in work with 30 different Web3 projects or what. I can't remember exactly what it was, but and he's saying in the tweet below as well, $9 billion invested in Web3 games in the past 2 years. It's just nuts. And like you say, Immutable are really setting firm ground here as the number one for projects to be involved with them. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I think they're going to run away with this. Honestly, obviously there'll be someone that tries to capture some market share, whatnot, try to have that competition. But I think IMX is so far ahead with big names like Illuvium, with again these AAA games, like you say, these I think he said 50 or some shit, 50 games that are going to be working, some crazy number. It's man, they're just on it, fam. They're on it, and obviously they built this reputation as the go-to. So as long as they don't really fuck anything up too badly, I think it's hard for them to kind of lose that spot. But sorry, Annie.
Yeah, I agree. I think Immutable is well positioned. We look at them and Polygon still. Those are my top two, as I've mentioned in the past. Chains that we see people building on, and you add that on top of the fact that the merge has now happened, and we don't talk too much about like layer one structures, but the next rounds of development on Ethereum are going to have some pretty big positive impacts for the layer twos that are built on top of it with their rollups, like we see with IMX, and so it's really just continuing the same trend that we've seen. I am eager to see scalability. Right, this is the big question that we've still got to have someone demonstrate with even just one massive game running at scale with,
I think it's going to be
I'm going to say millions of transactions per day, like not hundreds, not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but millions, tens of millions of transactions per day that are running to demonstrate this is scalable. We can have that structure in place and have it running consistently, because the last thing that you want is, let's say you go out and capture this absolutely amazing alluvial and you want to sell it, and by the way, servers down. You can't get in, and I mean we've all experienced that.
Because I know that was the thing with Gods Unchained. Like when I first got into it, like the forge wasn't working. It took ages to be able to get that. Like it was working, it wasn't working, it was working, it wasn't working.
Solana,
So was that Solana just in general? Solana in general. So like that is a thing, because I've kind of made that I put that out there publicly as well regarding IMX's scalability. That's the thing that I'm worried about as well, because we haven't seen any proof of that just yet, not to the scale that you're talking about as well. I personally think that Illuvium is going to be that test, just because it seems like it's the biggest, closest thing to being like put out there on that scale. Whether we hit that millions of transactions quickly, that's debatable. We'll have to wait and see. But apart from that, I can't see anything else that's really going to come in there. Maybe this AAA game, like Web 2 AAA game that's maybe they've already been building for a while, and then they're just putting it on Immutable. Maybe that might be it. But again, I completely agree. I think the whole scalability thing is the thing that I'm looking at. But again, I'm not too worried about it. I'm cautious about it, but I do believe like Robbie and the team are going to be able to overcome it. If there is anything, again, it seems like they've set themselves up in a pretty good position. And like I said, I think that's the only thing, really, not the only thing. When I said like if they don't let something fuck them up, I think that's going to be the thing. I think if the one thing that's going to fuck them up, it's going to be the scalability. If that is anything,
right?
Yeah. So let's talk some more about the point of scalability and replayability. One of the most interesting developments that we've seen in gaming over the past few years, maybe a decade or so, is the ability for players to generate their own content. And this takes a lot of different forms. Can be things like creating their own maps or creating their own levels or worlds. All the way up to creating their own game modes, right? I mean, we look at things like Dota and some others where user-generated content is really the name of the game in terms of engagement with your community. And so, what do you all think as far as the importance of user-generated content in Web3 gaming? And I know we've got the tweet from Santiago pulled up. You want to walk us through that, TSG?
Yeah. So he's kind of just talking about in general the rise in user-generated content based like with TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, compared to things like actual traditional media, Netflix. Like I know more people, and I think most of us, I think for the general public, most people spend more time on YouTube than they do on Netflix, unless there's a specific Netflix like series that they just binge. But otherwise, again, it's like we spend more time on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. It's like, again, I think it goes back to this is my personal take on it. I think it just goes back to the whole, we feel closer to like, it's like the end product to consumer without any middleman, right? It's like we're looking at the person that's making that content straight to us. We can comment on it. We can reach out to them. We can talk to them. It feels very close to us. So we'd rather spend time like that. And it speaks directly to us. I think we now have that choice where we're following people that speak directly to us compared to a curated like Netflix show, which has got a whole bunch of people putting their hands in it to try to curate something for you. Whereas if I'm watching, I don't know who's someone that I watch, Nico Amalana, who's a random like YouTuber in England. He ran for mayor of London. But like his shit speaks to me directly. Like it's hilarious. Like I like the trolling and the shit. So it's like I'd much rather watch you for the whole day than watch anything on Netflix. And I think it goes back to the same thing when you talk about Web3 gaming. How important is that? I think it's super important because again, you're gonna find the creators. Like I think that's why Sandbox is gonna do well. Something that Andrew actually said, and I agree with him about what makes a good, a successful content creator game. And I'm quite sure I mentioned it on here before, but it's the 4 things. One is its competitiveness. Like, is it actually competitive? That's going to be super important. Second, is it constantly being updated? Once it stops being updated, it's going to die. Third is lore and roleplay, like GTA. You can play as a good Samaritan. You can play as a police officer, whatever it is. And the last one is user-created content, meaning mods. So I think having those things creates unlimited, like an infinite amount of content that can be created about a product. And I think in today's environment where we've just seen that whether Web 2 or Web 3 take that out of the picture, us as consumers are leaning more towards user-created content in general based on like entertainment. So if that's going to be the case, we need to find out how to make gaming fit into that. And I think following those 4 things, including user-created content in games with mods and customizations, is super, super important. That was a bit of a long kind of journey that I took you guys on, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I'll add to that. I do think you're right on the whole, like getting to know and feel like you actually know the person rather than, you're watching a show and you know the character, but you don't know the person. And I think the second part of why we're looking at content on YouTube or Instagram, or I was even surprised to see Snapchat on that list, but I guess it's because like the
Snapchat's still popping. Snapchat's still popping.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I guess
I don't use it, but I know it's still popping. Yeah.
All right. And the reason why I think like what you said, yes, but also because it's just shorter content mostly. But I was surprised. When I'm on YouTube and I follow the Sidemen, also UK group, and their video, they've changed a lot of what they do. Like now they're doing game shows and like longer videos than what they used to do before. And like I'm shocked. Their videos now on their main channel is like an hour long plus, like over an hour long. And I'm not there yet, but I can see why someone chooses to watch on YouTube where they actually know the characters from the Sidemen rather than watch on Netflix where they don't know the characters and they don't have this whole history with the people who are creating the content. So I definitely see what you're saying, like play into as well. We're watching shorter content because that's just how we're moving forward now with social media, but also that allows us to watch the longer content because now we feel like we get to know the characters once they've done.
Yeah, once they're established.
Yeah,
this is something that I talk to like influencers as well. It's like, man, if no one knows you, don't put out an hour-long podcast. And that's why I'm such a big advocate for clips. That's why I'm such a big advocate for clips, because if no one knows you, no one is going to sit down and watch an hour of your content. Like that's just not, like, the audacity to think that someone is going to sit down and watch an hour of your content is incredibly absurd. But what can you do? Yeah, man, make the hour content. That's fine. Do that. But then cut that up into smaller like pieces where, like, if they're interested in the topic, they can watch that. And then they can, like you say, Will, they can decide to, can decide whether
let me get this fixed.
It's fine. But yeah, like they can decide whether they like you enough to decide to sit through that whole hour, right? I think that's super important. But yeah, so again, going back to the whole user-created content for games, I think it's a given, man. Well, what do you think, Annie? What's your take on all of this?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept when you add Web3 elements to it, because if we step back, user-generated content is basically an open source building model for gaming, or let's just say entertainment in general as an industry. Gaming is just one application of it. But it's really just taking this decentralized model and applying it to the entertainment sector. And we've seen decentralization, if anything, has been the entire theme of the 2010s plus, whether you're talking about decentralization of rides with Uber and Lyft, or decentralization of housing with Airbnb and stuff. It's the same thing now in content creation. The interesting part is right now, if you want to be monetized or to make any money from user generated content, generally you're having to go through some third party intermediary, and you're having to take whatever that percentage is that they're giving to you, right? If you're going to build YouTube content or TikTok or or Twitch or whatever, you're at the mercy of whatever the percentage is that those platforms are willing to give back to you. And that means that in many cases, I think people are disincentivized from doing so, because most of the value is accruing to the platform layer, not to the content creators. And I would say the promise of NFTs around art and art developers is, oh, you can keep basically all of the profits of whatever you make, and you're not having to pay 10, 20, 50, 70% of your profits back to someone who basically is serving as a middleman. Now, again, there's importance in some cases for those platforms providing an audience or reach, but most of the time it's not worth the total amount that you see. So what I'm really eager is there's a number of projects that have been experimenting, and it's early days, but if I give you a game and you can create a level in it, and that level that you build is now an NFT, you can monetize that. Right. You can immediately monetize that and take 90 whatever percent of the value and have that accrue back to you, not to the developers that built the platform and the infrastructure for the game. And so now all of a sudden you've got the power of decentralization and open source on one hand, and then you've got the monetization and individual builder ownership on the other hand, with Web3 elements that you can combine in the gaming space. And that's a really powerful mix. So I'm really eager to see. I don't think I haven't seen anything really substantial yet in this wave 2 of Web3 games where someone is super leaning into only user generated content. There's a few projects.
Sandbox is the only one that I can really think of.
Yeah, in Blankos you see a lot of it too, where you can create different levels.
That is fair. So I think a lot of these games, I would say they're kind of experimenting on the margins for it. I think Sandbox's business model is more or less, we're going to convince all of the Web 2 companies and projects that like we're the place to be. I don't really think their platform is actually designed for building entertaining gameplay. That's kind of the problem with Sandbox. And so
maybe we're just old, man. Because like that said, I just had a chat with this sounds so bad. I had a chat with a kid, one of the kids I was making content on Illuvium. He's like 9 years old, and he was like, I made him a promise: if he made 3 pieces of content, I'd go on his channel. He did. And I was just talking to him about games that him and his friends play. And they're super, super into Roblox and Minecraft. So maybe like the whole Sandbox thing is like, we don't think it's engaging gameplay, but maybe these kids do, man. Like clearly they do. Like there's something about these games that they're really into.
They certainly do. My son also is heavily into Minecraft. Here's the problem though, is if you're a 6 to 10-year-old, you also don't have disposable income in general. And so while I agree that that's engaging gameplay mechanics for kids at that age, I think that's more of a gateway or an entrance into more robust gameplay mechanics. And from a dollar standpoint, there's only so many times you can ask your parents for another $5 to buy a level before they're going to be like, no, this, I'm out. Now, maybe the argument is, well, if you get to own that level and you can sell it to somebody else, all of a sudden this is the equivalent of my first lemonade stand. Now I'm a Roblox or Minecraft trader as an 8-year-old. Who knows? Maybe this changes the game dramatically for parents who will let their kids spend more as long as they can own and flip the stuff. But I think in general, that's the good example of how this can be applied, and we need to see it applied for more I would say meaningful and more sustainable gameplay mechanics.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see how it goes, because like again, when I speak about Illuvium specifically, the user created content that I'd like to see for Illuvium, And I know it's been mentioned quite a few times already, but like I don't know if you ever saw, there was like a small clip ages ago of like them doing an obstacle course. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it's like, man, I know a lot of people have kind of said anything from like, yo, we should try and do that where we can have user created obstacle courses, just ideas. Because I think you're right, man. That's where the fun's going to be, and people are going to be like, yo, did you try TSG's course? That shit was hard. Or like, and I think again, that's really going to incentivize the content side of things. I'm thinking about it from the content side of things, because because I know how important content is to the success and longevity of a game.
And things can really go viral, right? Like you said, like, oh, did you play TSG's maps? Like, no one's beaten it yet. Like, kind of like Ready Player One. Is that the name of the? I forget. I watched
Ready Player One.
I'm starting. Yeah, exactly. I'm starting listening to the book, like you guys told me, and I'm loving it. But it's the same thing. Like, it's so dang hard. Like to find the egg or whatever, the Easter egg. So,
what are your thoughts on the book, though? What are your thoughts on it so far? Solid, dude, right?
I love it so far. I just gotta get through all of it. It's 15 hours of it, but I'm a few hours in, and I'm loving it so far. And I'm like, should I watch the movie? Should I not watch the movie? Because I haven't watched the movie. People will be shocked, but I haven't watched the movie. And if I know if I watch the movie, the book won't be as good probably because there's spoilers, alerts, and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, dang, so interesting.
Yeah, the book is way better. All right, we'll pull up this as the last thing, and then we'll end out. So GameStop has. Let me put it over here. GameStop has 5.8 million paid members in their Power Up Rewards program. All millions of members will receive Gods Unchained NFTs that are tradable on their marketplace. So this is big. Like GameStop in general has been making big moves. Again, I keep saying this, but Illuvium is like their poster child right now. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things on GameStop, but obviously Gods Unchained are doing big things with them as well. Will, I think you've got a lot to say on this shit, right? Oh no, I won't say a lot.
I found this on Twitter, and I was just so dang excited because I think it's the right way to integrate Web 2 gamers into Web 3. Because you do get like rewards all the time in regular games, but like they're basically useless. And I know I get so much that I don't care about. But if you do get something like an NFT, you're like, okay, what is this? And then to educate a bit on this, well, you can take this right now and you can sell it here. Or you can take this right now and you can upgrade it when you're playing Gods Unchained in game, or like when you're playing the game you're playing. I think it's a right move of not kind of forcing, but not forcing something on someone, or like trying to convince them of something, and like try to like, oh, just download this game, bro. It's just $10. Download the game, or like maybe the game is free, but it's 40 gigs to download. Yes, download and try it. They won't try it, but if you give them this and firsthand, and like that's how you get them in. You don't force something on them, but you rather educate them. Like, oh, by the way, here you go. They're like, what's this? Go ahead and try and use it. And it's like, oh, this is my first entryway into Web3 and NFT gaming. I think it's cool.
Yeah. What do you guys think about GameStop in general? Because like obviously like I think it was last year, right? They had the whole GameStop meme thing up and down, like it was going crazy.
I think that was 2 years ago or something.
2 years ago?
Fun,
it was, man, that's crazy. Time flies. Like that was all happening, and people were like, yo, GameStop's dying, or this, that. But then it seems like they're making massive moves in Web3. Do you think they're going to be the guys to like, do you think they're going to be a big part of that transition from Web2 games to Web3 gamers? Like, do you think they're really going or do you think it is just a meme and it's a marketing thing where they're trying to just grasp on to survive? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Andy, go ahead. I've got some thoughts, but go ahead.
Yeah, the jury's out for me. Okay. So I do think that it's very interesting, and it's not often the case that you see incumbent companies that have really built their game models around something completely different just do essentially a 180 pivot. Now, it's not unheard of, and so there's certainly examples that I can think of where a company has a business model, they realize that it's flawed, and then they pivot to be operating in a related way in the space. And so I think that's what they're trying to do here. They recognize that brick and mortar and come in and let me show you all the games that you can buy is going to become more of a legacy even than it is today. We've already seen tremendous drop-offs as soon as digital distribution was enabled over the past years. they really started to fall off. You want to avoid becoming the blockbuster of gaming, and so I think they've actually taken some of those lessons, and with this Web3 pivot, I don't know if they will succeed or not, but the advantage they have is they've got a big community, and you just showed the number. 6 million is not that much in terms of global gamers. But 6 million paying customers is a meaningful amount. And so if you're able to begin onboarding that many players, you've got a chance. And I think the sort of, as you mentioned, the meme and the investing deal with the GameStop stock over the past couple of years really brought a lot of attention back to them. And so, good or bad. But I guess, as they say, like, no, there's no such thing as bad publicity. So if they can actually turn this into something useful, this is one of those companies that you might look back on 10 years from now and say, this is one of the most remarkable sort of corporate turnarounds that exists in history. If they can pull it off and really become sort of an integrator for Web 2 gamers into Web 3.
Yeah, I think when we look back in hindsight, it's going to be either one of those things. It's going to be extremes. It's going to be like, man, look at them, like, desperately trying to just stay relevant, or holy crap, they did it. Like, they actually did this shit. So I think it's going to be one of those two. There's no in between. But yeah, Will, you have a lot that you wanted to say to this.
Yeah, imagine if they do turn it around and it all started with a meme. How cool would that be?
Yo, if that's not the biggest millennial story ever. It's like, oh, the memes and everything, Gen Z,
yeah.
I'll be so epic, man. Honestly, I want to be positive here, and I'll say they do have a spot in the industry somewhere. I'm not saying how big, but I do believe they have a decently big spot, because and I've heard Gary Vee talk a lot about this too, is like nostalgia. The nostalgia that it's like that GameStop has, and it's not always good for me, because I remember going there and trying to replace one of my games, and they're like, yeah, you can get 5 cents for that game. I'm like, what? And like, they would be really harsh, but I would go there all the time as a kid, and every time we were at the mall, I'm like, Dad, please, can we go to GameStop? And the nostalgia with GameStop is so big, and I think a great example of where we saw something that was really big in the past, then not really do much, in my opinion, and then like boom, was Pokemon. Pokemon boomed because of the nostalgia. Me as a kid, I used to play Pokemon all the time. Same thing now, a few years back when Pokemon Go was released, and they beat records for like the amount of gamers, and it was crazy in peak. It was crazy. You would just go somewhere in the city and like, whoa, why are so many people gathering right there? And it's like, oh, well, there's a gym here, or there's a Pokestop here, and it was crazy, and it's all because of the nostalgia. And that's what GameStop has, and like you said, Annie, a big community because of that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, guys, the whole Pokemon thing, I'm so sad about, but it was using Niantic, it was using like Google Maps or some shit like that. So during that entire craze, I really wanted to get on it, but me living in China, I couldn't. So I never got to experience that shit. And it was so sad, man. It was so sad because I knew everyone was so onto it. And I was like, oh, man, it would have been cool. But no, I never got a chance to that. But no, I agree, man. I think the nostalgia thing with GameStop, I think they do have a chance to do well. Again, we'll have to see. And I think them partnering, I think them partnering with like people like Gods Unchained and Illuvium, I think them partnering with these big titles in Web3 is putting them in a better position than them picking like a random, like an Axie or something like that.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, TSG. One thing that maybe we can talk about in a future episode is this use of augmented reality and sort of geolocation concepts into Web3 gaming and just gaming in general, because I think this is really going to be interesting. There's some cool projects. Civitas is doing some really neat stuff with their upcoming mints in this space. So definitely keen to chat on that some more. And hopefully we can get you, even if you just come out and visit some of the rest of us for a bit here, TSG, we can get you to a place where you can actually use some of that technology in some of these games coming up.
Yeah, I'm actually that is actually a thing I've told my wife as well. Like once like flights and everything open up, I'm planning on just going down to Sydney for a couple of months. I was like, I might be gone for like 2 months just because I can now. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to travel and do things and actually like live a life. Like, I think that's going to be exciting. So yeah, definitely. I'll definitely visit you guys at some stage. That's definitely going to happen. Yeah,
it's gotta happen. You guys, if just imagine like how good these talks are virtually. I'd love to do it in person, right? And play some games. So we're finally back. We missed last week. I'm so dang excited to be back this week, and I can't wait for next week when we record another one because it's so dang fun. And I'll say too, we did not mention it at the beginning, but if you just want to see the best parts, the highlights of these podcasts, of the podcast episodes, we do have the Gaming on the Block Clips channel that is linked down below. And we post like 7 of those a week, I believe, like once a day almost. We post those, and we also post those on the other channels too. So with that said, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for this discussion. We're finally back, and thanks for everybody watching. Please let us know your thoughts down below on everything that we talked about and Web3 gaming coming up. And that's it. Appreciate you all for once again for the 3rd time here. Here's the thing. This thing, I had a sheet hung up here. It's failing me, and the sun is so annoying. So that I got unsettled there for the end. But you guys, thanks for the discussion. Thanks for everybody watching. Yeah. We'll wrap it there and see you guys next week. For the next
blessings. Peace out, guys.
Take care, everyone.